Hello, everyone, and today I want to talk about why high turnout would actually benefit former President Donald Trump against a matchup with incumbent President Joe Biden. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and drop a comment down below. We can see that right now my political forecast for 2024 actually has Trump with 345 electoral college votes to Joe Biden's 193 electoral college votes. And the reason for that being is because Trump improves massively with young Hispanic and African American voters, which would give him victories, very easily in the Rust Belt, especially in the Sun Belt area as well, and would allow him to expand the map into deep blue states like Maine, New Jersey, New York, and even many more like Illinois and Colorado. We can see my election model has the RCP aggregate 2.2% for Trump. He's up 2.2 points nationally in the polls. Biden's approval rating is minus 16, which is a lot lower than what it was in 2020. In 2020, his approval rating was plus 6 on election day. You can see my model accounts for demographics, polling averages, the results from the previous two elections, and the swing and trend from those two elections, which I could go into more in a further video. And we can see when all of that is put together, on top of my election model from Gold Crown Politics, which basically tracks the approval ratings of both candidates and sees where they're at. So right now, Trump is 2.7 points ahead of Biden in approval rating. And essentially, that gives us this map here, which has Donald Trump winning the election in grand fashion as of right now. However, this would only occur if high turnout would take place for the election. Now, you may say, well, didn't high turnout favor President Biden last time? Not necessarily, because the higher turnout would have actually helped Donald Trump. Donald Trump, if that election was lower turnout, Biden probably would have ended up winning by a larger margin than before. The fact that it was higher turnout actually helped Trump get a lot of voters that he didn't get last time, and actually allowed him to barely lose that election across Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona by only 40,000 votes combined. And so now, if you look at Biden's approval rating, it is way worse than what it was before. It was plus 6 before. He had a 52% approval rating, and now it's at 40. Trump, on the other hand, is actually sitting at 43.2, which is only 2 points lower than he was sitting at in 2020. And what's actually funny is that back then, when you looked at polling data, registered voter polls were better for Biden, because if you looked at it, the more turnout there was, the better it would technically benefit Biden in that scenario, according to polling. But now it's actually the opposite. We actually see across multiple polling aggregates, Trump actually performs better with registered voter polls than likely voter screens, which would indicate the more people would actually turn out, the better Trump would actually perform in the electoral college. And this is reflected in many polls. You could see here in a likely voter screen, we see that Biden's up by 1. In the registered voter poll, Trump is up by 1. So you see there's a trend here where Donald Trump performs better with registered polls instead of likely voter screens, which was not the case last time around. And so I've actually constructed a model with the 538 website, which actually shows, the same margins that I have Trump winning by with these demographics, which include age, education, sex, income, and race. We could see, Trump's getting about 20% of the black vote. He wins the white vote by 11, loses Hispanics by 10. He loses the female vote by 18, but wins the male vote by 9. He loses college educated voters by 18, but performs way better with non-college voters, and gets within striking distance with 18 to 29-year-old voters. But despite that, I have edited the turnout margins to essentially favor the most democratic voting groups, like, 18 to 29, college, female voters. White voters theoretically is a good turnout demographic for Biden, because that's actually what helped them in the 2022 midterms, funny enough. And so you see that if turnout is lower, we actually see Biden barely wins the electoral college, 271 to 267. Now, the map does look fairly strange. You do have the Rust Belt being, basically almost deep Democrat. You have the Northeast trend significantly to the left. Even a state like Pennsylvania would. Virginia would be very competitive for whatever reason. In Ohio and Iowa would be just as red as Nevada, but the Sun Belt would basically be ruby red. So you would see a fairly weird map, and even Montana being under 15. So lower turnout would indicate Biden would do better with certain demographics. And even though this is not the map I would project for that, you clearly see Biden does do better according to the model. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to fill out an an electoral map with a lower turnout in mind based off my best educated guess for every single state. My opinion, we would see Donald Trump still win these red states by safe margin. The Great Plains states, the Appalachian states, these would still be ruby red. However, you would see he'd have far less safe electoral votes. Iowa, Ohio, Florida, and Texas would all be likely, including South Carolina. South Carolina was only an 11-point win for Trump. So, in a scenario where you have very low turnout, lower than 2020, I'd actually expect South Carolina to go likely, and including Alaska would definitely be closer than 2020. We'd see California, Washington be safe, as well as DC, Maryland, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut. But New Jersey and Delaware actually expect to still be under 15 just because Biden's approval rating is so low as of right now. Even states like New York, Illinois, Colorado, and Oregon would be under, 15 points. Maine's first would be safe, and Maine at large and New Hampshire would be likely Democrat states in this scenario, including Virginia and New Mexico. Hawaii would be safe. So you kind of come down to the traditional swing state map. Now, I would see North Carolina probably being around 2.5 points for Trump. I think he'd still win it, even with lower turnout. But you would see African American, voters, Hispanic voters that would turn out for him now wouldn't necessarily turn out for him if a lower turnout were to take place for the next election. Georgia, you would see Trump probably still win it by about a point, but he wouldn't do as great as he would do now. Right now, he's forecasted to win it by 8.2%. I would only have him winning it by 1.5 in this scenario. And you'd probably see him win at Nevada by a pretty decent amount. He'd probably still win it by 2.5, 3 points, possibly even more than North Carolina. And that leaves a couple states up on the map. We'd see Minnesota probably go lean, and even to an extent, New Hampshire would probably even go just because it's a very anti-incumbent state. And at Minnesota, you do see Biden hemorrhaging, that Israel Hamas base. But if the rules don't turn out the way Trump needs them to, the Israel Hamas, basically bottoming out of the Democrat base won't be enough for Biden to lose the state. And so that basically leaves us with Arizona, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Now, Michigan, I do think would be really close, but I think that Biden would still hold on if turnout is lower just because of the fact that, again, Israel Hamas alone, that conflict and Biden losing voters with that is not going to be enough for the state to flip. So if turnout is very low, I think Biden will be able to retain most demographics, and I think he would barely win the state. Pennsylvania, you'd probably see Pennsylvania actually be more Democrat than Michigan in this scenario. You'd probably see the Philly suburbs, still turn out for Democrats, but the rural areas for Republicans would just not be it in this scenario. And that would eventually cause Biden to win it by about two. And you'd still see Wisconsin probably vote for Trump, even with low turnout, just because of how bad the state demographically is for Biden. You'd see Nebraska second, still be lean, and Arizona would definitely go to Biden. The state has been trending left. And even though Trump would be doing way better with Hispanic voters, you would more than likely see Biden, barely perform better with whites in the state to give him the victory here. He'd probably win by about half a point, so just a little better than 2020. And so this could be a map you do see if people don't turn out. And that's why I tell people it's very important. Just because you think that they have a trick up their sleeve or you think something's going to happen on election day doesn't mean you get to sit out the election. You must go out and vote, because if not, you can see something like this possibly happen. Biden is not guaranteed to lose, but based out of all the data, it does seem like he's going to lose in a landslide. But this is only going to occur if turnout maintains at the level I expect it to. If turnout is significantly lower, you could see a map similar to this actually occur, and Trump may still win with a Michigan or an Arizona, but it is way more likely that Trump wins with higher turnout this time around. That's why I tell it's very important for people to go out and vote regardless of how you feel about the system. If we do have problems with the system, which I believe we do have problems with it, then we're going to address it once we get Trump in there. But right now, we cannot be doing that, and we have to play to win in this scenario. And so, if you guys did enjoy the video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, make sure to go ahead and follow the Twitter and join the Discord server in the description down below. And I will see you guys very, very soon.